I think here we had discussed the day before yesterday. So yesterday I discussed with this, like if a rule is pushed from panorama, okay, like basic power management thing, okay. And then we went and discussed creation of objects in firewall, okay. And in that we discussed address objects, okay. We discussed tags, how to utilize them, okay. And like how does configuration look with tags, without tags. Then we discussed services, okay, where we can assign and decide which ports are allowed for which thing. So we can create service objects and apply them in a security policy to allow or restrict uh, to a certain port number while making a security policy rule. Here we had two predefined services, HTTP, HTTPS, and yesterday we created one for FTP. Okay. Then we discussed NAT, static NAT. We discussed and basically configured a policy to use it. Okay. We discussed how bidirectional option creates a destination NAT rule automatically. So, and we even utilized that bidirectional option. Yesterday we and tried to open FTP. I think that configuration is still here. .0.202. So basically, on my laptop is right here on this network side. So on from my laptop, I hit the Ethernet 153 of Palo Alto, which is basically NATing, doing a destination NAT. That when destination IP is this, translated to this Win3, where this FTP is actually hosted, okay, on this Windows machine. So we checked whether it worked or not. So it worked. So that's like the basic, like what we discussed.
So basically, NAT, some security policy rule, some objects,
Yeah.
and I would say that's it.
Yeah.
The major part, tag and okay, I got
Objects,
it. Okay,
address, service, tags. Okay. I think
okay,
you can get this address, service, and tags thing. You can easily get if you just read through PAN-OS admin guide.
okay, okay.
This NAT thing might be a little bit complicated for you to understand because the way we are and
How much NAT we covered yesterday?
we configured static NAT and we saw how it works bidirectionally. Like it works for this PC initiating a communication and going out, as well as when somebody from outside hits this and gets translated to inside the
Okay,
audience.
bidirectional NAT and the static NAT. Okay,
Yeah. Okay. So today let's create a dynamic NAT. Okay. Like it's very simple here. Like in case of even Cisco, when you create a dynamic NAT, what you do is you have a list of public IP on the external facing interface, right? So if I click add here, Also, if you want to do some of these things, they are also available. But sometimes people don't easily find their option. So, original packet, I'll say if it comes from under zone, okay, destination zone bar, uh, destination interface Ethernet 1/3. Okay, and here instead of you know like mentioning individual IP, I could say like the whole subnet. Okay. Okay, let's do it for both of these. Like I'll disable uh, that room. Okay, so source on this, destinations on this, source subnet. Uh, Destination, they might be going anywhere on the internet, so we are not concerned with that. Translation, just like we did static, dynamic, okay, and then there is stat. So we can say dynamic, and here you can mention all the public IP addresses that you have. Like in our case, obviously, it's not directly connected to the internet; it's connected to my home network, and then that's what sends it out. So I can take some IP addresses from this subnet. 202. Just like you create a pool, NAT pool there. Okay, so you can add the IP addresses here. Right. So once you commit this, both Win2 and Win3, internet should start working for them. Okay, so saying to google.com is working. Okay, and here you can see that Firefox installed update. So that's also a symbol that it has access to internet. Okay. Okay. So internet is working. Okay. And also we can check exit session to the firewall. To do show session all, what you see here is like okay, see all these different things that they have started running, because it's Windows, so it's going to start running those other background things. You see uh, Google's app ID being used to decode traffic, but although we are not actually allowing or disallowing something based on app ID, but like you see the SSL is being used, DNS is being used, like you see even Firefox update, it recognizes this thing. Okay, and some of the DNS queries are going out from this Win2 machine. to 8.8.8, which we give it as a DNS server. And then this OCSP protocol is used to verify some certificates of HTTPS websites, so it's being utilized for that. Google Play, Google Base, okay. So a lot of different stuff going back and forth, okay. And that was for 10.0.1.11. Okay, when this 10.0.1.11 is going out, it's utilizing 203. Okay, and when this 10.0.2.11 is going out, it's utilizing 202. So just like dynamic NAT, a pool of addresses. Okay. Now there are many other options. You can just filter and see them. Okay, like you could add filters, but preferably people don't like to see all of it through CLI. Okay, but here I'm just showing you it through this because your monitor tab will not work until license is installed onto the firewall. So here it's easier to see it, like similarly even in a licensed firewall you can see it here. I have included that in the screenshots, some of the screenshots that will be coming later, so you'll be able to figure out. It's actually self-explanatory from the GUI. It's very tabular, from which zone to which zone. Source, obviously user we have not touched yet. Source user won't be just black. Okay. Fine. Next, suppose I want to do PAT. Okay, let me just clone this rule. It would be easier. Okay, just disable this as well. Okay, so let's go to this. Okay. That is what they call it in Cisco. Preferably don't utilize that word. I'm just saying that so because you are already familiar with that. They call it dynamic IP and port. Okay. Okay. Dip here. So preferably utilize this dynamic IP and port word. Okay. So simple. Whatever you want to call it. In the original packet, we'll say from these. Okay, it's quite similar. In the translated, we'll say dynamic IP and port. We can say we can mention an address here, or we can just select the interface. Ethernet 1/3. The IP address on that comes from the drop-down menu, so it becomes easy. So now we are utilizing PAT. Okay. Now whosoever goes out, they'll be utilizing this IP address to go out. Okay. Fine. So same thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, app ID will work perfectly fine with that. Actually, most of the times in organizations we use PAT. We utilize one public IP for many people, right? So see, it doesn't matter whether it's before the translation or after the translation. Even if you utilize NAT on a completely different device, you can still utilize Palo Alto's app ID functionality. Like suppose I'm just taking an example. Uh, yeah. So it's like see, we installed Firefox update. Okay, until you really go to application layer and check what are the contents of the packet, can you figure out that this is Firefox update or somebody just browsing Google? Right? You cannot do that. So app ID really goes till application layer. It's not just uh, like they don't just claim it. Okay, it's really the way like that. Okay, so it doesn't matter even if we had a topology, like suppose I'm just taking an example, like suppose this is a switch and this is another router, and this we have firewall, and we are doing suppose NAT on this router. Still app ID can recognize it. Okay, and lot of times people have NAT on different devices, so it can be the same. Okay, that was source NAT, not so difficult, right? Now there is this concept of NAT over subscription. Okay, and this is actually a unique feature of Palo Alto. Okay, so you can pretty much expect that this is something that will be asked about in certification exam, because most of the times I'll tell you, like whenever you're studying any device, okay, if there is something unique, a new feature or a proprietary feature that they have brought into anything, there will be questions based on that. The reason for that is because, like if they ask you what is static NAT, even if you are coming from Cisco background, you might know it, right? But if they come to this question, like until unless, like what is DIP NAT over subscription, and then they give you 4 options down there. Until or unless you have really gone through the Palo Alto content, you won't be able to answer those questions. So, anything unique is generally asked, generally more likely to be asked on certification exam. So, having said that, let's discuss what is this. Okay, and in order to understand this, okay, first thing I'll clarify: this is not necessary to configure. Okay, it's an optional feature. Okay, if you don't want, you can leave it as it is and not configure it. Okay. Secondly, where is this used for? Okay, this is used in those scenarios where we have to do a lot of NAT. Okay, like maybe in a data center environment where we have a lot of virtual machines and servers and all these different devices in the data center, and a lot of people are trying to get in, get out, and there's a high volume of NAT being done. Okay, so this is generally for that scenario. Okay, now uh, let me clarify first NAT. Okay, okay, suppose let's talk about this scenario. Okay, and here what happens is like okay, just for the sake of this example, let's not talk about the private IP here. This is for management. Okay, so leave this one aside. Suppose we have whatever public IP 100.0.0.1. Okay, okay. Now what happens is when you access internet, okay, whether this guy goes out, okay, or whether this guy goes out. If we talk about the outside internet, for them, both of these will be sourced from this IP, right? That's the concept of NAT. Okay. And even if suppose we have a switch and we have some other people, all of them can go out, but for going out on internet, they'll be all represented by this IP address, right? We'll will change their source IP from private to public, right? That's what NAT does. One of the most common uses, right? Now, suppose if uh, these people are going out, this you might have learned in even CCNA, is that when Win2 is going out on internet, suppose it's going to 1.1.1.1, okay, and suppose Win3 is going to 8.8.8.8, okay. Now, when they go out, what happens is like their source IP changes the packet, okay, whatever packet it sends, the source IP on that changes from this thing to this thing, right? And suppose this guy utilized the port number, okay? Suppose both of them are browsing websites, okay? And if you talk about the port number, like suppose this guy used a source port of whatever, okay, 20,000. Will that be changed? So commonly we don't alter that, okay? So source port remains as it is, okay? If you had been utilizing a static NAT, okay, because then it would have been one-to-one translation, okay. But if we are doing dynamic NAT, okay, then sometimes in some scenarios we change the port number as well. We change the port, we translate the port as well. That's why it's called PAT in Cisco, okay. When do we change the port? Okay, we change the port for those devices if somebody is already trying to utilize this port. So suppose Win2 has used port number 20,000. In this scenario, Palo Alto will not change the port number because only this is using it. Okay, but now let's suppose Win3 is trying to go out. Okay, it utilized this source IP. It utilized the source port of 23,000, suppose. Okay, now when it utilized the source port of 23,000, again traffic going to Palo Alto, the IP will be translated from this source IP to this source IP, right? And the traffic goes out. Will the port change? No, the port remains unchanged. The port still remains 23,000 and the person goes out. Okay, fine. Now, why did we not change the port? Because both of them utilized different port numbers. Okay, we can easily identify because for the outside person, both of these requests are kind of like originating from this public IP. Okay, so these can be easily identified by even this firewall that if I get reply back for 100.0.0.1 with a port number 20,000, I'll send it to Win2, and if I get a response back for 100.0.0.1 port number 23,000, okay, and then I'll send it here. Okay, but the thing is If suppose, okay, because these devices randomly choose port numbers, if suppose both of them utilized 20,000, okay, the first went like, you know, fraction of milliseconds before, went to utilize port number 20,000, okay, the first person utilizing 20,000 port number, you don't change the port number, right? You just send it out. But when the second person utilizes this 20,000 port number here, okay, now firewall cannot keep it as it is, okay, and send the traffic out, because if it is going to keep it as it is, the problem is when the return traffic comes, which will be destined for 100.0.0.1 20,000, who will you respond to? Who will you send it back to? Who will you unnat it to? Will you send it to Win2 or will you send it to Win3? So for the second person, like Win3, when it sends this traffic, you change the port number. And this is a universal truth and it is applicable for even Cisco devices, okay, or any other router. Okay, so if two people utilize same port number, then it's going to translate the port as well from 20,000 to whatever it feels like, okay, whatever is free, okay, suppose 25,400, okay. Now that way it can easily identify that whenever I get a reply back, if I get a reply back for 100.0.0.1 port number 20,000, I'll send it to Win2. Okay. If I get a reply back for 100.0.0.1 25,000, I'll send it back to Win2. Right. Nothing new till now. Okay. I've just refreshed your same CCNA concept about NAT. Sorry, 25,400. Okay. Now, what is NAT over subscription? Okay. See, you cannot utilize, okay, can you utilize the same IP and port pair for multiple people? No, you cannot, right? That's the rule, because we want them to easily get identified, okay? So same IP and port pair cannot be utilized for two people, right? Clear till now? Because then I'll discuss, what's different and what's NAT over subscription. Clear till now? Anybody having any doubts till now before I go into NAT over subscription? Okay.
Sir, for same IP and port, if it is having a for different zone, then can we use twice NAT or like that?
No, it's not about using twice NAT. Twice NAT is used for other things. Okay.
Okay.
It's just two people, and not necessarily think of it. I'm in different zones. Okay, they can be part of even the same zone. Doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you utilize same IP and port pair, what is the problem? The problem is that here this firewall can get confused when it gets a reply back for port number 20,000. Who should it send it back to, right?
Yeah. So it is not possible for the same zone to we assign the same IP for two different devices, right?
No. See, we are not assigning the same IP, but if you consider, if you just leave this aside, okay,
Okay.
consider it from an point of view of a person outside. Whether Win2 sends anything or whether Win3 sends anything, for a person outside, it is this guy always, right?
Yes. Yeah. Got it.
So same IP, I mean this same IP and same port pair cannot be utilized by two people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like why do you need it, and like what are you thinking? If you can, like, what scenario, what use case? No, actually, I'll tell you, a lot of small time ISPs, they do this. What you are thinking, they do this. Okay. What happens is, like, if you look at the small ISPs, imagine this. Suppose I'm a small ISP, and if I have 500 customers, okay, maybe I don't have 500 public IPs. Okay, then for me, I can consider all my customers as if they are hosts within my network, and a lot of ISPs do that. That you are doing NAT from your home router, he is further doing NAT from their device, and they just keep a log that who is utilizing what IP, just in case it's needed for some uh, legal purposes. Okay, so this happens. You can do, like, even here in our scenario, if you look at it, my home router 192.168.0.1 is also doing PAT for these people to go out, right? For Win2 and Win3 to go out. Palo Alto is also doing PAT, and then to this physical network, my home router is also doing PAT. So we are in a way using it, right? See, both will sorry, both will take care of their own NAT tables. Okay, like, if you consider my home router here does not know these people, Win2, Win3, right? For my home router, everything is originating from this 192.168.0.202 configured on Ethernet 1/3, right? For my home router, all of these people, Win2, Win3, are hidden. It just knows this one single host, right?
Answer, I have one small question.
Yeah.
It will maintain the it will maintain the SSL to identify the IP address and port number, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, is it any like any? It will maintain like how many times of maintain is there any time duration to maintain or flush the detail
See,
specific
it's
time?
like when firewall looks at any traffic flow, okay, uh, there are timeouts as well, but most likely what happens is, like, suppose Win2 initiated some communication, okay, suppose Win2 initiated some communication, what is it going to do first? It's going to do a three-way handshake with that device, right? SYN, ACK. So firewall can understand this. Okay, it will create a session table entry when this guy sends SYN. Okay, but then when the traffic flows, it is going to still keep the session in the session table, right? But even for terminating the session, what do they do? This person is going to do a four-way connection termination. Fin, Finac, Fin, Finac, like this, right? So firewall can identify that as well, just like it can identify TCP three-way connection uh, initiation or connection establishment. it can also identify that now the connection is getting terminated. So if the connection is getting four-way connection termination, Power also removes that from the session table. So it's not always the timeouts. Okay. Did you get the point?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So, can we see that details? Suppose before 1 hour, someone hit
Mhm,
with the specific port.
mhm.
Then after that, suppose connection will finish. So can we check the IP address or which port number are where
We
we
can
will?
check if it is in the logs. If it is in the logs, you can check it from the monitor tab. Okay. You can go here and check in the traffic. Okay. In fact, you can apply filters so that you just look at particularly a timeline. Like I want between this time and that time. If it is being logged, if it is not being logged, then there is no way to check it. I'll show you this monitor tab, and it will be better clear after I power on that licensed firewall.
Okay.
Okay, I'll show you how to filter it out.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Sir, also
I
these
was
things
on
is maintained in the state table as well, right?
what thing?
Can we like these things are when the traffic is going from inside to outside, then these things are managed in the state table as well,
These
right?
things are maintained in the state table or session table, but once the session gets over, he's talking about 1 hour before, right?
Yeah.
So it won't be in the session table after even 1 hour, right?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
talking
in the
about,
logs it will be, but
yeah, won't
just
be,
like
most
NAT
likely won't
table,
be.
yeah, NAT
Mhm.
table and state table, how you can differentiate it, that what exactly?
See, NAT table and state table, all you can see here in a combined scenario. Okay, I'm actually getting deviated from that NAT over subscription thing. Okay, so you can see the NAT being happening here as well, right? Because you see in original port, original IP, translated IP, translated port. So it's in a way actually showing you NAT as well. And like yesterday when we didn't do NAT, when we just had communication between Win2 and Win3, and at that time, if you see this translated IP of source and translated IP port of destination, there was no change. But today there is. Okay,
This is the
like
live
currently they
session.
are not.
Sorry,
Hmm,
sorry. Go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry. Go
like
ahead.
currently the destination is not being changed because it's people accessing internet. Okay, but source we are changing. Okay, so the way they have done it is in they have tried to you know show you all of these things because you open state table, you check the state from there, you open NAT table, then you check the NAT table from there. So they have tried to combine and show you it in one place. So this is also showing you the NAT table in a way, right?
Yes. So if we execute show session all, so it will display the live session details, right?
Yeah.
So also we can identify the that details in from the backend, the all session details.
Backend, you mean what?
as as you told, uh,
Mhm.
we can find the all details in a logs, right, from a UI
Mhm. Mhm.
in a monitor tab, right? So
Mhm.
also we can identify that details from the backend.
See, you can see it from the GUI, you can see it from the CLI. I think you're trying to say the CLI is backend.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So you can see it from the CLI, you can see it from the GUI. And also if you see like currently like show session all is showing you this. If you feel like, you know, I want
So it will. Okay.
more details about a particular session, okay, you can select that session ID and say show session ID 348. It's going to tell you client to server flow, server to client flow, start
Okay,
time.
this is the live session report,
Yeah,
right?
these are all.
After the active session details, right?
Yeah.
But after that, the session is
Mhm.
like deactivate. Then can we identify? That is, I am asking.
Then you have to check the logs. That's what I'm saying. Session table, state table, that table, these are only things which you can see for current happening things. You cannot utilize it to check historical things. Historical things you check on logs always for any device.
Okay.
Okay, now I was on the topic of depth NAT over subscription. Now, if you look at that, what I was trying to tell you here is that you cannot utilize the same IP 100.0.0.1 with same port pair, same IP and port pair like to go out for two different people. Okay. Now, what does dip NAT over subscription do? Dip NAT over subscription says that, see, what was the problem here? Okay. Problem was, why didn't we let Win3 utilize 100.0.0.1 with 20,000 port number? Because the issue is if when you get back the traffic, it's going to be difficult to identify who should I give it back to. Okay. Now, what Palo Alto says here is that when you are sending traffic out, okay, if Win2 and Win3 are going out to different destinations, okay, suppose Win2 is going to this destination, okay, this is the destination for Win2, and suppose destination for Win3 is this. And if you have NAT over subscription enabled, you have to enable it. Okay, I'll show you how. If you enable that, what you can do is both of these people or even other people can utilize the same IP 100.0.0.1 and port number 20,000 to go out. Okay, like this guy goes out 1.1.1.1. This guy goes out, utilizes the same IP and port pair. Okay. Now you might be wondering, okay, now when the return traffic comes, how does the firewall identify it, right? See, you can use same IP and port pair in NAT over subscription if and only if destination is different. If destination is same, then you cannot utilize same IP and port pair. Okay. If destination is different, how does it matter? Okay. When the reply comes, okay, it since it in the table, it is also keeping a track of where it is going. Okay. When the reply comes back from source IP 1.1.1.1 for the port destination 100.0.0.1, it will know that this guy is who is going to get this traffic. Okay. Whereas when the traffic comes sourced from 8.8.8 destined to this 100.0.0.120,000, it's going to send it to Win3. Are you getting my point? Like you can utilize same IP and port pair 100.0.0.1 and port number 20,000. Okay. You can utilize the same IP and port pair in NAT over subscription if destination is different. Okay. Now let's read it a little bit from here. See. What is NAT over subscription? Because sometimes it might be difficult to explain in it in an interview. Okay. So what's the official language for this? Same translated IP and port pair can be used multiple times in simultaneous or concurrent sessions. Okay. Assuming that hosts are connected to different destinations. Okay. Now question comes, if hosts are going to same destination, can you do NAT over subscription? No, then you cannot do NAT over subscription. Okay, there is no way to do it then. Okay. Now see, if you go to device setup session settings, here you see this option of NAT over subscription. By default, this option is selected, platform default. But you can choose 2x, 4x, 8x. If you do 2x, it's going to oversubscribe 2 times more. Like I'll give you an example. Suppose I have one public IP. Okay. How many port? What's the port range for TCP? It's from 0 to 65535, right? And in that you have 0 to 1023 as well known. Okay. Okay. Let's just subtract in general out of 65,000. Let's not do too much maths, and even Palo Alto has ignored that too much math. If you just subtract 65,000, if you subtract 1,000 from 65,000, you have around 64,000 ports. Okay, right? So if you talk about, how many people can utilize this one public IP to go out simultaneously, they cannot be more than 64,000, right? Because you don't have ports beyond that, right? For one public IP, you can have 64,000 people utilizing those ports. So simultaneously 64,000 people can go out. But suppose if I configure the NAT over subscription as 2x, then same one public IP can be utilized by 128,000 people or PC. If you enable 4x, it's going to be 4 into 64. That will be 256,000 sessions will be happening. And if you look at 8x, then 8 into 64,000 sessions, that will be 512,000 sessions, or 512,000 PC can utilize it. Same one public IP. Okay. But this will work only if hosts are connecting to different destinations. This doesn't work if hosts are connecting to same destination, because then there is no way to differentiate it actually. Okay. Clear? Any doubts?
So different destination means different IP they should have, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Destination here.
Not in the network, right?
No, not in the network when they are going out. Like I told you, the destination for Win2 is 1.1.1. Destination for Win3 is 8.8.8. Then you can do NAT over subscription. And 100.0.0.1 port number 20,000 can be utilized for both Win2 and Win3. Now see, what kind of questions you generally get on the certification exam, okay? And what they'll include all sort of irrelevant details, okay? Just give me a minute, I'll show you a sample question. Okay, read this question, okay? Now, see, on a firewall that has 32 Ethernet ports, okay, and is configured with DIP NAT over subscription rate of 2x, okay, what is the maximum number of concurrent sessions supported by each available IP? Now, tell me this, is this relevant to our scenario? We don't care whether the port are 32, 12, 8, 4, doesn't matter, right? What they are asking is how many sessions, simultaneous sessions we can have per IP address if we have 2 times over subscription rate. See, one IP we can have 64,000, but now since it is 2x, it will be 128,000 sessions here. Are you getting my point? Okay, because for one public IP we can have 64,000 sessions, but if you have made 2x, it will be 2 times this, so that's 120,000. And these kind of questions, they'll include a lot of like 20 people are accessing it using a firewall of 8 ports. All these irrelevant details you don't care. Okay, and at the same time I'll give you another thing, like I've included the formula here if you don't want to think too much. Oversubscription rate, you can have it 1x, you can have it 2x, 4x, 8x. Okay, address pool size means how many public IP you have into 64,000. Okay, so suppose I have 4 public IP. Okay, and if I say that I have a oversubscription rate of 2x, okay, then how many sessions can I have? Okay, that will be 64,000 into 4, because I have 4 public IP, right? Into 2, that will be 512,000 sessions. Got it? So you just, this is the number of public IPs, this is the oversubscription rate. You just care about these two things. How many public IPs is he talking about? If it is talking about per IP, then you can just consider this 1. Okay. Another thing I'll add here is that when people think platform default, people think that platform default means 1x. Okay, and not necessarily. Okay, on all the platforms or all the firewalls of Palo Alto, the default value for oversubscription rate is different. Okay, like in our case, if I just go to the firewall, if you go to device, setup, session, and open this session settings. Okay, if you look at here, net oversubscription rate is set to platform default. Okay, now I'll show you this here. If we open the compare firewall section of Palo Alto website, like if you look at this 7,000 firewall, okay, should be under the NAT subcategory. Here, see, default DIP pool over subscription. What is the default DIP pool over subscription rate in a 7,000 firewall? It's 8x. It's not 1x. Okay. Now, why they have kept it this? Because they know that nobody is going to buy this for their, small network. This is a data center device. Okay, right? So I hope you got the point. Like, don't consider that this will be 1x always. Okay, in some scenarios or in some firewall models, this might be 8x by default. Okay, so if somebody has chosen platform default in a 7080 Palo Alto, it will be 8x. Okay, from CLI also you can configure this using this command. Clear on NAT over subscription, what it is? Then I'll move to the next topic.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, Sudhanshu. I have one small question. So if
Yeah.
we change the like uh, 8x to like 2x to 8x in my firewall, so it will impact to our traffic or device any kind of.
See, it won't directly impact it, but it impacts the number of sessions one public IP can be utilized for. Like, for example, okay, suppose you have a like I'll give you another example. Okay, see, uh, okay. Now this is too low session count because this is an unlicensed firewall. But uh, suppose, okay, suppose I go for a VM100, okay, VM100 Palo Alto. That VM100 Palo Alto gives you 256,000 sessions. Okay. Now suppose I take that VM100, okay, and I have one public IP on it, and I configure NAT over subscription rate as 8x, suppose, okay, that will be what? 1, 8, 8 into 1 into 64, that will be 512,000. If my firewall doesn't support 512,000 sessions, okay, session count, does it matter whether I do it 8x or not?
Yes,
It doesn't matter. Are you getting my point?
yes, yes.
Because my firewall's capacity is max 256,000 256,000 sessions. So even if my NAT over subscription rate can support 512,000 sessions, this is never going to get utilized. Okay, because somewhere where I reach around 250,000 sessions, that's where my CPU utilization will be almost deadly for the firewall to maybe crash. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
right?
You're right.
So it impacts it as well as it doesn't impact it because there is no direct impact. Okay, but it makes sense to increase this oversubscription rate only if you have that many number of sessions available in your firewall. Okay, like in my case, this unlicensed firewall has maximum simultaneous sessions of 1248. So suppose this is the firewall I'm using in production, which will never be the case. It doesn't matter whether I select 1x, 2x, 4x, or 8x because even
Yeah.
1x is going to give me 64,000 sessions, and my firewall doesn't support 64,000 sessions.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's basically license and
The capacity of your firewall,
the
don't say
capacity of
license, because this is for the lab environment, right? But the capacity which you firewall you go for, like if you look at this firewall now, it supports a lot of sessions. Okay, if you look at the session, it supports 80 million sessions. Okay, right? So there's a lot of NAT going on. There will be a lot of public IPs. That's why I said, this feature is more useful for people who are having high volume of NAT being done on their device for typically commonly a data center environment. Okay.
Okay.
Next, let's talk about destination NAT. Okay, and we did static destination NAT out already yesterday. But this is like, suppose I have in my premises multiple services hosted like email, DNS, HTTP, and all of these servers are on private IP. And suppose this is the public IP on the outside facing interface. Now, when people from outside they hit public IP 12.0.0.1 port number 25, I can translate them to go to my email server. Okay. If they hit 53, I'll translate them to go to DNS server. Similarly for a HTTP. Now sometimes these port numbers inside network, they don't keep the default port number, like for email it's 25, for DNS 53 and HTTP 80. If you have kept it that way, you can mention it that. But a lot of times people like to because well-known port numbers are available, and everybody knows, even the attacker will know that if you have hosted a server and you have utilized for it for email, you will have port number 25. So a lot of organizations don't keep the same port number internally, so that they can prevent some attacker from getting to the server, not really telling them the whole details about the network. So a lot of times people translate it to some other port, not necessarily the same port. Okay, you can translate it to the same port as well, like 25 to 25, 53 to 53, and 80 to 80. Okay, so that's destination NAT. Okay, you can already do it using static IP. Okay, and this will change the destination IP address. No change in destination port, because this is a one-to-one mapping. Okay, can also be done using static source NAT and checking the checkbox bidirectional, like I showed. And most of the people, uh, security admins, recommend to create a source NAT and make it bidirectional if you want destination NAT to. Okay, that's the way most people recommend to. Okay, other is you can have port forwarding. Okay, now if you want that, I'll add and show you. Okay, suppose destination map. I'll say original packet if you come from Bahar zone. Okay, destination would be DMZ. I'm just taking an example. Okay, destination interface. I think that's Ethernet 1/2. Let's double check that. Yeah. And then this is all things related to original packet. Okay, so you can even mention the port here. Okay, now when you're doing it, destination at source, you will not mostly know, right? Like people, if they are coming from internet, you will not know the source, so you can leave that as any. You can mention the destination NAT as destination address as 192.168.0.202, I think. Okay, on Ethernet 1/3 we have this IP, and then once you have done this, you can mention in the translated packet, I don't want to change the source. Okay, let it be as it is. I just want to translate the destination. Okay, so you can have static IP or dynamic IP with session distribution. So even this way you can do it. Okay, like I can say 10.0.2.11, and you can mention the port if the port is changed. Okay, so one way is doing it this way for static destination NAT. Another way was like just checking checkbox and making it bidirectional. Okay, it's going to work the same way. No, it won't be here. This. No, don't worry. This might be a little bit confusing. I'll explain. I will come to this, like what I have done. Okay. Don't worry about like this NAT rule. When you look at it, you'll be like, what? Right? Like it seems so. Source zone, Bahar. Destination zone should have been DMZ. No, it's Bahar. Okay. I'll tell you why. Okay. And see if it's working. We'll discuss how it works. Okay. So optionally, you can have port forwarding in which you can map a single IP for different ports to different devices. Okay, like we discussed. Now, everything clear till now, except this. You know, this might be a little unclear. Like, why have I kept the source zone Bahar and destination zone Bahar? Okay, right. See, one easy way to understand it is we are talking about the original packet, and this still happens with sometimes with me as well. If you talk about the original packet, okay, where is it coming from? It's coming from Bahar zone, okay, right? And what is it hitting? Okay, it's hitting the outside zone. Are you getting the point?
Yes.
Like here, they are coming from here, from Bahar zone, and hitting also the Bahar zone IP,
Yes.
right? They are not hitting this DMZ zone IP. Okay, so that's why it's source zone Bahar, destination zone Bahar. Okay, fine. And when they hit this destination address, we translate them to this. Okay, that's why I had said a lot of people like to do it the other way, like do it based on source and then just use the bidirectional option. Okay.
So in this scenario, we need to create the reverse. So it will transfer the data automatically from the inside to outside.
Yeah, it's transferring that automatically.
Okay, so no need to create a new network from the inside to outside.
No.
Only single.
Because see, the only difference now here is, I'll tell you. When we were talking about source NAT, in communication was being initiated from DMZ or inside, right? These were
Right.
initiators.
Yes.
Whereas now the communication is getting initiated from outside. When they hit this, it's already a TCP three-way handshake to this, which gets translated to this, and then you get a reply back which is sent out. So all of this information is already in the session table, right?
Yes.
So no need to do anything related to.
Actually, I have seen in my firewall, someone has already created loopback address inside to outside net. So
Loopback, most likely they might have created for some form of VPN. The rest, it's hard to tell until I look at the configuration.
for the
Like, really.
single net policy, they have created two rules. From first we have created Bahar zone to Bahar zone, and then we have created the destination net, right? For the internal 10.02.11
Yeah.
Win3, yes. Then the second rule, like 10.00, like under zone to Bahar zone. That is initiated. That is
Yeah. See, this inside to outside or under zone to Bahar zone is basically for people to go and access internet. Okay, like we had this dynamic net. Okay, if you look at this net, this is for people to access internet. This is not for hosting our services, right?
right.
This is if you have hosted a service. Okay, and the same thing could be done using this way as well. Yeah, it's one and the same thing. You can say, not just hosting, like even if I have a Windows machine here, I want to hit it from outside. Like if I hit even suppose I open a remote desktop connection even to 192.168.202, it's going to open Win3, right? So you can say not just for hosting. That's perfectly all right. Okay. Like I'll show you if you want. Okay. Username Shiva. Password Shiva. So you want to connect this file certificate errors? Yes. So you see this guy was logged out and this is the same PC, right? So it's not just for hosting, you're perfectly right. Okay. You could even take remote desktop sessions by doing destination map, or various other things can be accessed. Because see, firewall here is simply saying whatever you hit on this IP, I'm going to translate you to this.
Yes, because we have allow the any services.
Yeah, security policy wise, we have not made any specific rules. So just like I could access FTP service, I could even do a remote desktop. Now, here also, let's discuss this with a fresh mind. Okay, even I have to leave in like 5-10 minutes. Actually, there's something that I have to attend. So, plus this is a topic which will kind of like It's a little bit brainstorming. Okay. And before I jump into this, I want you to have a hold of NAT and security policies individually. Okay. Because this is when you start talking about making the policies, mixed, like NAT along with security policy. This is how it works. So before I jump into this topic, okay, I want you to have a solid foundation of NAT and security policies. And I highly recommend in free time today, uh, go and read this from the security policies. Okay. Okay. If you want to look at the NAT policy, it's not that big actually. Like if you look at security policy and policy objects, which we have, some of them we have discussed: address region. Okay. So you can discuss this security policy. Not discuss actually, you just read this. Okay. Optional. You can read this security policy action. How do you create a security policy? Okay. And also in free time, go to this networking section, and just like you went for security policy, read this NAT section. Okay. This is a theory you can read for this. Okay. Like NAT policy, what does it do? They start from very basic static NAT rules. They have discussed even scenarios, like if this guy is trying to access this thing, then what happens? Okay. Then they have discussed source NAT, dynamic IP and ports, dynamic IP, static transmission NAT. We discussed static IP and dynamic IP with session distribution. So read it. Okay. And they also discussed somewhere here. They discussed this NAT over subscription. Yeah. They say the NAT rule capacities. Okay. Like all the things that I explained to you, read this part as well. Okay. Like they have given you the examples and everything. And see, the default over subscription rate for a PA 220 or 820 is 2. Okay. But for a lot of them, it's 4, 8. So don't take it for granted that it's 1x. Okay. Also, they have this configuration options like trust zone, untrust zone, DMZ zone. They have discussed some other forms of NAT, bidirectional NAT, U-turn NAT, so you can have that. Okay. I highly recommend to read this section of NOS admin guide, because as a R&S engineer, if you leave NAT or if you just learn the basics of NAT, it works. But as a security engineer, you need to have a very strong hold on NAT. If you don't have that, it becomes very difficult to do the job properly. Okay. Fine. So we'll discuss this tomorrow. Okay. And once I finish that, then I'll start with app ID. Most likely we'll start with app ID as well tomorrow. This is just we need to discuss how these two work with each other. Okay, but before we go that way, you should have a solid foundation of NAT as well as security. Okay, I'm just giving you time if you have not done anything till, like, and if you have not read and spent time, do it today. Okay. Because this when you mix these NAT and security policy, it's very difficult to grasp sometimes if you don't have the proper concept of these two. Okay. Fine. Anything else if you have any doubts?
Sudhanshu, how can I get this document? Actually,
Okay. So,
Same question.
hmm?
I also want to raise this question.
Yeah, I have told in the initial classes that if you search for PanOS admin guide, okay,
okay.
you can go to Palo Alto website. They'll give you this PanOS admin guide. If you just click on this, they'll give you the option to download it. Okay. For use for version 9. Okay, don't use for older versions. Okay. I've just downloaded and kept it here. Okay, this is the same PanOS admin guide. Okay. Don't try to read it from start to end. That's what I have recommended in the beginning. Read those sections which I have told. Like initially, I discussed firewall administration, configuration management. So how do you take configuration backups? I showed some sections from here. Okay. Then we went for networking. So I told, like, you can read from here about all these different types of interfaces. What is virtual router? We configured service. We'll configure service route later. Okay. We configure static route. So you can read this part as well. Okay. So now I'm saying, like, read NAT from networking part. Keep it downloaded to your laptop. Okay. A lot of times when you'll Google search stuff, you'll be redirected to this PanOS admin guide in one way or the other way.
Okay.
Fine.
Yeah.
So this is really an very important document to keep in handy. Like anybody who manages Palo Alto daily should have it on the desktop. If they don't have it on the desktop, they don't really understand PanOS.
Yes.
Okay. Fine. Anything else? Fine, I'll end the meeting then. Okay, bye. See you guys tomorrow.
Bye.